Hello everyone, my name is Emmanuel and I'm very happy to present the essay I'm currently working on, named Inequalities and Contradiction in Do-It-Yourself Music. So, after being involved for more than 10 years in the DIY movement both in France and Canada, I realized that independent music relies mainly on musicians' willingness to pay. This idea is in total contradiction with what DIY originally stand for, leading to this rather provocative question: has DIY become a smaller version of the very industry it once opposed? So, why is it a contradiction? Well, because DIY originally arose against the profit-driven music industry. The aim of the DIY movement is to improve the working conditions of musicians while putting creativity on the foreground. The DIY movement is based on a network of passionate people whose aim is to support the musicians they love through the organization of shows or the publication of fanzines. At the same time, this movement allows more radical forms of music to emerge, such as shoegaze, math rock, post-rock, or screamo. Since the DIY movement is deeply rooted in anti-capitalism, its aim was never to generate substantial profit. However, it certainly refused the idea that musicians are both the one who are performing and also the one paying for it. So, what happened? Well, it was believed that the internet would be extremely problematic for the major labels while allowing DIY musicians to bloom. Indeed, with internet, no more middlemen, no more intermediaries. Musicians can directly distribute their music to the audience, and the audience can directly help musicians. However, because of the economic model put in place by streaming platforms, only major labels benefit from the music listened on the internet. Indeed, streaming platforms became unavoidable, and their economic model is extremely unfair. Imagine buying a CD from a small local punk rock band. You would imagine that the money you spent on that CD would go to the artist and its label. Well, in Spotify model, the money you spent on that CD is first going to other bigger punk rock band before reaching the artist you just bought the CD from. In other words, the economic model of streaming platform is based on how dominating an artist is, and at this game, independent artists can only lose. Because of this economic model, promotion and visibility became a new currency. Therefore, new intermediaries appear: PR agent, playlist curator, social media specialist. We see those new intermediaries not only in pop music, but also in more radical music genres. We find them in screamo, post-rock, shoegaze, krautrock, etc. Those intermediaries can be expensive, between $200 to $3,000, depending on the service provided. Only few musicians can afford them. Moreover, the investment made in public relations agency are rarely compensated since streaming revenue are virtually inexistent. Of course, musicians do gain exposure from getting the help of a PR agency. However, it's not with exposure that you pay a rent. So, what are the consequences of this economic model for DIY musicians? Well, because less and less independent labels are able to afford the production of an album, this cost now falls upon the musician. Sadly, the money invested in an album production is rarely compensated by the streaming revenue. Of course, it is totally normal to pay a sound engineer or a mixing engineer and everyone involved in the release of an album. However, not everyone can afford to make an album in a professional way. Yet, no real distinction are made between self-produced musicians who handle everything due to the lack of financial resources and musicians who can afford to be surrounded by professional sound engineer or professional mastering engineer. Both are considered as independent and DIY. Therefore, the success of an independent project do not only rely on the quality of an album, but is also affected by the ability and willingness of the musician to pay for its production or its promotion. While musicians with a higher economic capital can afford a professional album production, most artists cannot. Therefore, being an independent artist is more a matter of economic capital than anything else. The DIY movement originally attempted to put marginal community in the foreground, but end up being open only for a small cast of artists. Moreover, while it is possible to do an album all by yourself, numerous forms of music cannot be properly recorded in a bedroom, for instance. I'm thinking mainly about bands who often require to rent a room or a jam space to be able to have a decent album production. It would be expected that live music could be a decent source of revenue for artists and compensate at the same time from the lack of revenue from streaming platforms. However, the issues that bigger artists meet with touring or with Ticketmaster are the same in DIY music. In North America, numerous so-called DIY venues ask artists to pay to play. At the same time, some venues even ask a cut on the merchandise sold by musicians. Again, not everyone can afford to rent a venue. And to play live, even in DIY music, you sometimes have to go through a booking agency. While both the venue and the booking agency get money from the musician often end up with nothing, and they can consider themselves lucky if they don't lose any money. So musicians both support live music, because without musicians you don't have any show, but at the same time, they are the one paying for it. The situation is obviously highly problematic. In the past, and before the internet era, it was not rare to see musicians leaving a label to protest against the conditions they impose. Well, streaming platforms are imposing absurd exploitative practices to musicians, and it seems only logical for musicians to protest against them. As a consequence, we start to see artists leaving the different streaming platforms. Moreover, there is no justification for the practice of pay-to-play. It's not normal that a musician is performing and at the end of the show is forced to pay a venue because no one attended the show. It's dramatic to see that we shift from an already unfair model where musicians were not fairly paid to a model where not only musicians are not getting paid, but also are the ones who are paying. Here, I'm not even protesting against the fact that musicians aren't properly paid. I'm protesting against the fact that musicians are both the performer and the payer. So, we are reaching the end of my presentation. Thanks a lot for your attention. I apologize deeply for my terrible French accent, and if you could not understand certain aspects of this presentation because of it, feel free to reach out to me. Of course, I go way deeper on those different issues in my essay. I detailed a bit more the different economic model of the streaming platform, and I explore in a more exhaustive way the different issues with the live music economy. Also, I would like to put the emphasis on the fact that independent music and DIY music is still run and is still existing because of a lot of passionate people who are like helping band, organizing a show, or publishing fanzine. Those people are extremely important, and they are facing tremendous obstacles due to the different economic logic we discussed in this presentation. I am someone who is extremely passionate by the DIY movement and the independent music, and I think it's important to protect the different actors who are acting out of passion at all costs. The different economic logic are slowly destroying the different subculture linked to independent music, and it's important for us to not let them swallow every aspect of the music we love. I'm very happy that the PSN conference gave me an opportunity to discuss this different issue. I'm sure the different people who are presenting at this conference are as concerned as me concerning the future of the DIY movement. And again, I would like to thank everyone for listening and for letting me discuss those different issues. Thanks a lot.